Good afternoon. My name is Carrie Howard, and this is my video observation journal for EDU 676. Um, this is the second part of an environment rating scale for autism programs. You can also see my filled in portion on the screen. The APERS, otherwise known as Autism Program Environment Rating Scale Self-Assessment Companion Tool, screens and scores certain areas to understand environments and to kind of rate them based on how well they implement interventions and address the social and communication and behavior needs of students with autism. So for this portion, the classroom that I observed, I'm rating the area of social competence. Personal independence and competence, functional behavior, family involvement, and teaming. So as far as social competence, the students were observed to work in groups or think, pair, shares, which builds social competence. It's really good for students with special needs and autism when they're given that scripted sentence strips or those visual supports, like how to look at somebody, how to face someone, how to lean in a little bit. So there's something on the wall called the 4 L's, and I think it's listening, looking, leaning, and listening, looking, leaning. And I can't think of the last one, but there are 4 L's visuals on the board. So that was great to help facilitate and build social competence in students. By having those activities embedded into the classroom routines and activities, then becomes a part of what they're used to, and they learn that scripting, and it kind of becomes just part of their schema and their way of thinking. Students are provided with many different forms of social competency builders, such as social stories, modeling, token boards, and this really does help support inclusion for our students. Sometimes just those little supports help make the difference between an inclusive setting and a more restrictive setting. Because transitions, we know, can be difficult, unexpected changes to the schedule can really upset students. So if they have a visual schedule, it can help them manage their strong emotions, understand what's coming up and what's going to be next to prepare for those transitions. And it really does help support inclusive environments. Also peer networks, just this is more of like, I think, a school-wide approach and to grade based on how well schools do that. There are some forms of social networks at this school, but they seem to be more limited. You have to kind of know about it. You have to kind of be invited to it. And typically those are the students that are struggling. It's not really super well known or popular, but we do have like Zendan and the Friendship Room. Those are some choices that build in some group time with our school counselors. So I think that's always just kind of like an area that could be improved upon. So I put that as like a 2. As far as personal independence and competence, from my observation, students are provided with at least 2 strategies to promote independence. I would always recommend more independent activities such as hall passes and stuff. Too often, especially in classrooms where you see students have one-on-one aid support or there's aides in the classroom, sometimes having extra support fosters learned helplessness. Like students are just kind of waiting for you to prompt them or waiting for you to get them the things that they need instead of developing that self-initiative or to try to do something on their own, or try to do more difficult things. It could be as simple as helping them through the lunch line, and are you picking the food for them? Are you allowing them to make those choices? Providing choices to them and letting them see. These are all ways to promote independence. Don't be afraid to sit back a little bit and see, allow students to struggle. In fact, it is one of the evidence-based practices to facilitate communication by showing students something they want and having them talk for it. And these are things that promote independence. So always look for ways and scaffold it, and always look for ways to push for more and more independence in their school day, whether it's communicating more independently, making their wants and needs known, getting items and tools by themselves, turning something in by themselves. It could be easier for us to come around and pick up their paper. But think about the things that they're going to need to be able to do independently to be able to go into those inclusive settings. They need to be able to ask for, using the restroom. They need to know when they're allowed to sharpen their pencil, or, what the strategies are to get those things, how to turn in their papers on their own. So we want them to be able to perform these tasks on their own. And that's the goal, ultimately, to be independent, self-sufficient adults as much as possible. That's what we want for them. And why not allow them to use their skills in this protective environment? Because the school is a protective environment. Yes, we do have the school staff support there, so students should be as independent as possible. But sometimes we see the opposite effect happening, where they become dependent on somebody because they're there. But I think it should be the opposite. They should be learning more independence. So, oops, I've been forgetting to turn my pages here. So here's social competence. And next we have functional behavior. How well does a school implement behavior plans? Do they provide collaborative opportunities among professionals and family members? These would be considered areas of strength. More collaboration is better than having one person independently say, oh, I know the student the best and I'm going to come up with a plan independently. Well, in the case of like an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, it's very important to have a team approach and a team mindset and get input from all different sources in all different environments. How do the parents perceive the behavior? How do they handle the behavior at home? Does the behavior occur at home? Do parents see this behavior at all? Is it happening in the general education classroom? Is it happening in the special education environment? Is it happening on the playground? Is it happening on the bus? I mean, there's so many environments that are possible in the school. How is a student behaving in the speech and language room? Or so, is something working with it? If it's not happening here and it's happening here, why? And maybe that could be part of the assessment process too. Maybe there's a supportive environment or built-in strategies into that other environment, or maybe there's a reason why the behavior is not occurring in one environment. So having a team mindset is important. Team members should be all encouraged to participate and collaborate and problem solve, give their input and ideas, and facilitate a proactive or preventative approach and find those evidence-based practices that will help our students succeed to the fullest extent possible. So next we have family involvement. What I observed was that key team members sometimes communicated with the parents. Page. Without using too much jargon. I have witnessed some individuals get very jargony, and even I have a hard time following sometimes, especially like in IEP meetings. Sometimes when we're reading those reports, it can be very, very hard to digest. And it's unfortunate because I think parents just get lost, and that's like the opposite of how I want parents to feel in the IEP. I want them to feel like they understand where their child's at, and that's the point of these reports. So the report should be digestible and understandable. I try to spell out all my acronyms, and especially for that reason for the parents, so that when they're reading their child's IEP, it makes it more understandable. Even acronyms and abbreviations that you might take for granted, even IEP, Sometimes people don't know what IEP even means. So you might take some of these acronyms for granted. And it's important to spell those out for all team members so we can all understand what's going on. And sometimes I don't know, but I feel like sometimes we throw out, or I've seen sometimes people throw out jargon and complicated language. I don't know if it's in an effort to sound more professional, but our goal, I don't think you have to use those fancy terms and words to be more professional. I think it's important that we speak at the level that is comprehensible to our parents, just like how we would teach in our classroom with our students. We need it, and not that we're like watering things down for parents. I don't mean it like that, but just that I think it's almost like putting ourselves above them to speak in a way that we know that is very technical language that you have to have like special instruction to understand. Like even being in the special ed field for as many years as I have, there's acronyms I don't know, and I'll be the first one to admit it, So, anyways, um, one of the main things, and I think the IEP process is helping parents to feel like as valuable team members, and that involves a lot of collaboration, family involvement. Don't put yourself or speak to them in a way that they don't understand what you're saying, and they might feel like a bad parent not know what you're saying or something. Especially you have English speaking or English learning parents sometimes that are speaking English for a second language, and they might be able to speak to you in a conversational way, but academic language and stuff might be a little harder for them. So also don't take for granted that your parent might need a translator at the IEP meeting. I always leave it up to the parent. I always make sure that one would be available for them so that they could be, and if the IEP needs to be held in two parts, or if it's going to run a little extra longer to have a translator there, it's very important that the parent understands IEP process. And that's why I also like to have IEPs in person versus online or over the phone, because I just feel like parents feel more part of the team when they're actually there in physical person. But parents are busy, they're working, so I try to be flexible too. The last section, I hope this video isn't very long. I'm gonna try to cut it short. Here we go. The last section is team meetings, that team members implement all actions. Systems are in place for making decisions at team meetings. I think this is something that can be hard at first, especially if you're new, and it might take some time to build that team or to build that trust among each other, that to be able to work collaboratively as professionals in when difficulties arise, that we find ways to be flexible and approach things to solve the problems or whatever is happening. Basically, I'm solving problems every day, you know, and I try to solve them right away if possible. That we collaborate, try to get to the bottom of it. If there's something happening on the playground, I'm not out there. So I'm going to need to go and talk to the people who are and find out what their observations are, what they are seeing, and then try to address it from there. So, anyways, last part about paraprofessionals in our district, they really have minimal training. And we find that you kind of have to, train them. And there's a lot of movement among the paraprofessionals. And right now we're having some problems with their hours or minutes, and there's some like disagreements among the paraprofessionals right now. The principal just had to send out like an email on Friday to address some things that are going on. But really the paraprofessional, I wish we had more collaboration time with them. I wish we had more training time with them. It just comes down to money, I think, and that time. they don't have to have a lot of formal training when they come on board. So it just depends. So there are very seasoned aides who you can, it's just a total difference. There's some people who are just like naturals that come in. They're still going to need training, because they might be very well intending, but they could come in and try to like assist in a situation and they're just like not, you know, following the behavior plan, or, so you're gonna have to step in and try to work with them so that they understand how to handle behaviors or whatever situation it is. So probably you're gonna be training some professionals in this position. So anyways, thank you for watching, and that's about all I have for today in my video observation. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.